Welcome ladies and gentlemen to another video. We're going to be talking about Cyberpunk 2077 today and all the issues regarding around this, because it wasn't just development issues, there were PR issues and so on. I just want to say, if you're one of those people affected because you had this one thing to look forward to in 2020 and now you don't even have that because the game doesn't work or something, I hope you do feel better soon. Any posts that I've made and memes about the game are directed at the company, not those who are not unable to play the game because of the state it is in on consoles, or because maybe your PC isn't powerful to run it. I myself decided not to purchase the game as early as April, when that second delay came, because I was just like, well, I'll just play the Outer Worlds until I finish that, then I'll get Cyberpunk. I thought I'd have it done by this point in the year, but I've not had the brain capacity to play an RPG. I'd want to stream Outer Worlds and enjoy that, or play it privately. If I stream it, I know I'm going to finish it, because I always finish games on that. And then all the other things happened, and then I started going, maybe I don't want to pre-order it. The last two games I pre-ordered were in 2015. Pre-ordering anything in the gaming industry is a risk, and people have been burnt from this. Undoubtedly, you want the copy of the biggest game of the year, and, well, it's been a disaster, hasn't it? It's been a disaster. Genuinely worse than Fallout 76, this launch. But will it get the same coverage and same criticism? I'm unsure. But yeah, if you could do one final thing for me, you could share this video around to as many people as possible. That would be nice, because the last video didn't do as well as I hoped it would. But that's life. So here's the main reason why my enthusiasm was dimmed regarding this game, and it's the crunch policy. Now, what crunch is excessive working hours in regards to development of games. Most people will think about it when those last few months or weeks before a game is launched. The intensive crunch period, people have to work incredibly long hours just to make sure, the boxes are ticked in all of the things that need to be done that go into the game. I don't even know how much work goes into a game. I know it's a lot, but the sheer scale would probably melt my brain if I knew. Now, the thing about it is usually done on a coercive kind of basis, and companies are able to get around it saying that it's entirely optional. But here's the thing, with use of shunning or potential, that threat of career damage by not doing it, a lot of people are coerced into doing those hours at fear of punishment. That same fear of punishment which leads to anonymous whistleblowing in regards to the working conditions at big developers in the industry. It doesn't help with us as consumers if Naughty Dog, Rockstar Games, CD Projekt Red themselves release a good game that's had a lot of crunch. We don't tend to talk about the crunch. Now, if a game is in a bad state, like this one, boom, then we'll talk about it. We pick and choose when we talk about the treatment of their workforce, which isn't great. And then you obviously have people who jump on the fact that it's anonymous reporting, going, well, it probably didn't happen, because if it did happen, they'd be willing to say it publicly, when anyone potentially could see that they obviously don't say because they don't want to be punished, and they don't want to be blacklisted or lose their job. This has been going on since a Bloomberg report in September, but the story has been going on for a long time. They themselves, from 2017, people were talking about, how bad The Witcher 3 development was, and I think people were hoping that CD Projekt Red would learn from that, and I think that's how they responded to it, to make sure it wouldn't happen again. But here we are. Also, just a little side note on how companies treat their employees or think about their employees. everyone knows how bad Anthem was, right? As a product when it came out. That was the result of a lot of crunch and how they were. It was an internal memo that was also leaked by Schreier while he was at Kotaku this time, labelling people who had quit their job due to multiple mental breakdowns, which were a regular thing throughout the development studio at BioWare, as casualties. Oh look, another casualty has happened. So they were acutely aware of the effect that the game and all this work was having on people. Maybe not the game, but the increased pressure that goes into developing stuff that is worth millions, potentially billions if it's a hit, you know. That kind of pressure cannot be diminished. No doubt higher ups and management use that pressure to try and motivate, but that will only increase, you know, stress, I would imagine. It's just one of those things. It's really, really damaging for those who are on the end of it. And then when you talk out about it, you will see people going, well, my job's shit, you have a better job than me, so I don't give a flying fuck about you. That same person would then play video games, no doubt, for a little bit of escapism based on the suffering similar to what they're going through anyway, but that's none of our business apparently. What's particularly frustrating about this whole entire situation was that they used it for positive PR. They carried on their not like the other game company shtick, which they have been doing for years, ever since the release of The Witcher 3. Should we get into it, shall we? It's so... I can't say the name, unfortunately. So we're just going to go CD Projekt co-founder, and then I'll put his name on the screen, because I am not Polish. I do not know how to pronounce stuff, Polish names at all. So yes, I will treat this guy with more respect than he does of his actual fucking workforce. So nobody really talks about what goes into development very often. So when he did in May 2019, it was kind of a surprise. The good thing about Kotaku under Schreier, they were very good in regards of talking about crunch. I don't really know if they still do, or if he was the biggest voice regarding crunch and he just took that elsewhere and they aren't anymore. I don't know. You know, I only keep up with stuff on games I'm interested in now, because I don't make gaming news anymore. This would be the kind of thing that would, you know, I'd have made so many videos out of this regarding situation if I was still doing that kind of thing, but whatever. Anyway, he went on to say that his company thought of itself as more humane than its competitors. While long hours would be permitted for those interested in working them, crunch would not be made mandatory. He called it a non-obligatory crunch policy and said it was something to be proud of. We are known for treating gamers with respect, and I would like us to be known for treating developers with respect. 1 month later, he doubled down, all but promising during a podcast that mandatory crunch would not be forced on his employees. I think you know where this is going. CEO of a major corporation, virtue signalling. Where could this possibly go wrong? In January 2020, CD Projekt announced that the first delay, it was moved from April to September, and the multiplayer was pushed to 2022. We need more time to finish playtesting, fixing and polishing. We want Cyberpunk 2077 to be our crowning achievement for this generation, and postponing launch will give us the precious months we need to make the game perfect. Ooh, that has aged so badly. My God. Perfect? You want to make something perfect? Jesus. But on that same day, during a public call with investors, CD Projekt revealed that crunch would ultimately be needed to get the game done on time. It would also be mandatory for some employees. Is the development team required to put in crunch hours? To which he answered, to some degree, yes, to be honest. We try to limit crunch as much as possible, but it is the final stage. We try to be reasonable in this regard, but yes, unfortunately. 6 months later, the game was delayed for a second time from September to November. Now, obviously, COVID-19 was partly to blame because they were unable to gather while the disease was in Europe, so they were unable to gather in big numbers within the development house. So they were obviously having to try and work from home to develop the game. And that's why they were somewhat behind schedule on that. The final few months are always the biggest hurdle, so they're always the most crucial months, and we know that from our past experience. We've been there a couple of times in the past, and of course this isn't the first time we're doing that remotely, so we learn as we go. This is the first time we're doing that remotely, so we learn as we go, but that's as much as I can say. So, it comes out in September that a leaked email mandated 6-day work weeks, and crunch had become a requirement, completely reneging on what he had said previously a year ago, which had got so much public good PR for them. It was ridiculous. It was ridiculous. They were able to continue as the darling AAA company as they had been for years, when in actuality they were worse than those others. Those others that do crunch do it privately and don't try to increase their stock price by, say, making positive statements about it, you know. They're actually worse. That's why it pissed me off so much and why I've continued to mention it at every available opportunity. But the thing is, delays only lead to more crunch. And admittedly, maybe, if we want to be really generous here, we could say that COVID caused one of the delays, at least, and COVID caused some of the crunch. But overall, we all think sometimes that, oh, just delay the game until there's no crunch. But that doesn't really happen, because release dates are penned in way before the game's ready or not. Because marketing is huge. Games spend a lot of money on marketing and the hype train. Personally, it would be far better for them and everyone else if they didn't start marketing the game until it was almost complete. That's what they used to do now. But in the case of this game's been marketed for a number of years, which has only increased hype to levels that potentially they were never able to match. But unfortunately, there are many questions, because in October, before the second delay, they'd gone gold. So the near final game code had been sent to the console manufacturers for certification to run on their device. So they were celebrating that the game was basically done, and then 3 weeks later, it's delayed again. So I would love to know what happened there. But each delay obviously loses face with the employers, so the workers have to put more effort in to try and get those finishing touches. Now you add a particular thing that happened with this game, and those waiting for it, the studio was sent death threats for releasing the game yet again. Which means, instead of delaying the amount of time that they would have needed to make sure the base games ran well, they delayed for like 3 weeks. And let's be real for a second here, that obviously wasn't enough, was it? And they've committed now to patches over the next few months to try and fix the damage. But yeah, it's just been a total trash fire, this game. You know, it really has. Like, crunch is just a horrible thing. Poor management leads to this, and a total disregard for the people that are working on their project, you know, for long periods of time. It really does you know, make me feel sorry for those who worked on this game, everything, because all this work has just gone to shit. Because the game wasn't ready, and they've been worked to the bone to even make it into this state, you know. It's yeah. And it undermines a lot of the messaging and themes from the game, you know. And their idea that they're this progressive games company, this will not be the first time in this video where I challenge that. So in this part, this is regarding their marketing and how they've set themselves up to appear, at least, to be a more progressive company regarding representation, which they talked about very openly in regarding to customizable genitalia and stuff. And we're going to be looking at a few things, one of those being the infamous poster as well that kind of announced that. But for me, you either look at it as a company that's trying and just missing the mark completely, which you solve that by hiring people who know what they're doing in that regard, you know. Or, if you're a more cynical person like me, you see it as another example of rainbow capitalism. And what rainbow capitalism is a huge corporation turning up for Pride every year and releasing a Pride, changing their social media banner to Pride, or releasing Pride-based products to make money off you, and then going back to normal the day after Pride Month. Or, in Bethesda's case, in countries that aren't LGBT friendly, their accounts in those countries not having the Pride flag because they don't want to ruffle any feathers. Or all the various companies that made really vague ass statements about Black Lives Matter early in this year, so that you'll be thinking, oh, this is a very good company, I'll be sure to buy their products in the future. That's how they want you to think. Whether or not you do, I have no idea. I can't say I was particularly enthralled by any of those companies' statements to buy their products, but here we are. But yeah, that's how I think CD Projekt Red has done it, to appeal to a larger crowd, to hopefully get more people buying this game, because obviously when you have 9 years of development, costs will rise up, and you'll want the game to appeal to as many people as possible for monetary reasons. Now, the Mix It Up poster. I'm going to let you decide for yourself what they're trying to do here, but yeah, it seems way off the mark, really. Like genuinely. I'm going to have a totally different experience looking to this through the lens of maybe even just being an ally who's not particularly educated, I would argue, on these issues, versus someone who is trans. They will see that potentially maybe much differently than I do. It genuinely looks like this person is being fetishized as a thing, you know, or like almost making a joke about it because they have a fucking giant penis there. You know, penis jokes are funny. I mean, they are, to me. But not in this context. I make penis jokes all the time, but whatever. Right? And, yeah. In that scenario, you make adjustments to the poster, don't you? Normally. If people have a problem with it. Because it's not really worth the hassle. But they decided to defend the poster. And the artist was like, I like how this person looks. However, this model is used, their beautiful body is used for corporate reasons. They're displayed there just as a thing, and that's the terrible part of it. You do Japan? What? They're talking about it from the context of, in the game, they're being used for corporate reasons, right? But they're being used for corporate reasons by CD Projekt Red to promote the thing, oh look, we have trans representation in the game. That's why this was released publicly. And people threw a shit fit at it because how dare you have trans people in games? How fucking dare you? How dare you make an optional choice for increased representation in my video game? I will not stand for it. But yeah, I saw the fucking people who went mad about this. Yeah, I don't understand why people have a problem with it. Like, especially when it's optional, you know. You are making the choice whether you want to do that or not. But it is objectifying, definitely, this poster entirely. And there are transphobic incidents apparently in the past, whereas it's just the classic, I mean, you know what is coming. You know what's coming. If you're a trans person, you would have heard this, or someone would have sent this to you, or you would have seen these unfunny memes where The official Twitter account from the game tweeted, "Did you just assume my gender?" in a response to an innocuous compliment. And then a month later, the Twitter account for GOG, which is owned by CD Projekt Red, CD Projekt. So it goes this: CD Projekt Red, GOG. There you go. They hijacked a trans-positive hashtag to make a joke about PC games. Oh yeah, I remember that. I was like, what the fuck are they doing? Like, come on. Who works for PR on that company? I'm pretty certain I could do it better. That's just so obviously dumb, isn't it? You know, using your game to be marketed, whether subliminally or deliberately. Well, it was a deliberate action to hijack a trans hashtag to make a joke about PC gaming. Like, why? Why would you do it? It's so fucking stupid. Especially if you're trying to go on about how this game is such a progressive game. You don't be seen doing stuff like that. It's dumb. And one I reported on, actually, at the time, in 2018, the game, they had tweeted out a gravestone marked "Games Journalist, Death by Suicide," with the date corresponding the launch of Gamergate. And after the criticism, they would delete the post and apologise, and the community manager got fired over the tweets. Now, here's the thing. Here is the thing. Is it a sole community manager being an edgy boy, being a bit of an idiot? Are they the sole person behind this? Or is this the attitude behind the scenes of Cyberpunk 2077 or CD Projekt as general? I don't know. We can't possibly know the answer, but you don't usually tweet that out in a vacuum, personally. It tends to be a kind of normalised thing. That's why you do stuff like that. You don't just do it out of whim, especially on an official account. It would be a bit different if this was the personal account of the community manager, but it was brand accounts. Those same brand accounts that are notoriously inoffensive normally, you know. It's weird. Not the only thing. The game's Twitter account also joked about cancelling their FIFA 78 pre-order due to lack of vagina options. It's like they have that one joke that they want to run it into ground, mocking trans representation through a joke. It's like, but that's the thing you want to be doing, so why are you joking about it, you know? It just seems a bit poor. It's a poor look, really. It's not really thought through at all. They also had a cosplay competition for the Mix It Up girl. And people were frustrated that a cisgender cosplayer ended up along the finalists. But that kind of portrays into the fact that they are clearly using queer bodies, if you will, for marketing purposes. And they don't really know or care much about why people have a problem with this and the attitudes that usually come through from stuff like this, you know, and how it minimalizes people. And the cosplayer tweeted in defense that costumes are beyond politics. When people asked her whether the costume dehumanized trans people who face violence, she was like, many cis men and women face acts of harassment and violence on a daily basis as well, which is, you know, true, but in a response to that question, not the response you should do, really, because it totally minimalizes the things that trans people have to deal with, and it's a bit turfy. I'll be honest, it's a bit turfy. Kind of thing I'd expect from J.K. Rowling. And also, it's not even progressive itself, allegedly, in the actual custom character screen. So it doesn't tie gender to genitalia, so you can have a transgender protagonist, but voice is still tied to gender, which is interesting. Why? What's the point of that then? you've half-assed the representation of trans people there, haven't you? So you have to be referred to as a woman, you need to select the voice actor with a feminine voice. And a lot of people, voice is more important than genitalia. People don't tend to see what's in downstairs, for want of a better analogy here, but they hear your voice. So it seems like they really shouldn't have tied voice to either gender at all, to be honest. It's really dumb, because they've just focused on genitalia as being the main thing of representation of what people wanted, right? And they haven't thought about any of the other issues, which begs the difference. Like, did they have anyone who's knowledgeable about this kind of thing working on the game? Even I would have seen this coming, you know? I'm not fucking intelligent. It's dumb. Really dumb. The usual Cyberpunk crowd are those annoyed by inclusion. So it's they kind of position themselves as like this anti-woke, if you will, thing. We're not like the other ones. It comes on with there. It wants to, at the same time, portray to those, you know, who... It wants to appeal to those people who are like, I'm never represented in the game, and I might finally be somewhat represented in this one. But at the same time, not alienating those who they know don't like diversity very much in their games. So they have this weird balancing act, because they want to keep two polar opposed groups happy so that they both buy the game, which is damn near impossible, really. But by doing that, it has earned them a group of gamers that will just not see the issues that are going on with this game until the game release. That was the breaking point.
What? What the fuck is that bug?
Now we're getting to actually the worst part of this video I'm making, to be honest. The sheer fan reaction and some of the things they have done. Obviously, it goes without saying, but I'm going to say it anyway. It's not everyone, but you know, it hasn't half had a negative impact on the game itself and everything that's gone on, you know? And no wonder there's a lot of negativity now regarding this game, just by based off of the fact that some people have just decided to go absolutely off their rocker about this game. And I don't understand any of these things that have happened, but here we are. We'll quickly go over the one I mentioned earlier, the first part. People were genuinely sending death threats to the point where they were numerous enough for the point that the official Twitter had to come out and make a statement about it because the game was delayed again. During a year where COVID-19 has been very bad globally, you would think that some people might be more forgiving about games being delayed this year. But apparently not. If you are someone that does that kind of thing, you are not welcome in the gaming space. End of. Like, that is beyond the pale behaviour. Beyond the pale. It gets slightly less mental, but still, you know, pathetic behaviour, to be honest. People align themselves. I feel like sometimes it's a risk of calling yourself a gamer and attaching your identity on your major hobby as being your main thing that you portray to the world. I think you can become a little bit too invested in gaming as a whole, and I think these people are when review scores don't match up and they get personally offended and incredibly angry and send all of this hate to the people that do the reviews based off a subjective opinion, I might add. We have disagreements with people on an almost daily basis throughout our lives, and this is how you react to them? Jesus Christ. And the ironic thing about this as well, all these people that got abused in the lead up to this game because of the low scores were only trying to warn them about what was coming over the horizon in a few days. They were warning you about the state of this game, and you shot the messenger, you fucking idiots. Oh, it winds me out so much. Because of this abuse, it was likely buried all over social media because people would be talking about, the talking point there is not that the game's a bit buggy and a bit shit on those consoles. They'll be just talking about the abuse that's come from this because it's ridiculous and it shouldn't be happening. So you've been used there to distract people from what's actually the main thing, the takeaway from those reviews. You fucking plebs. Anyway, moving on. The other thing that also happened, one person thought they'd write an article about a particular point in the game that could trigger seizures. Well, turns out the people who like this game, a lot of them, decided to deliberately send in the replies to that article on social media videos deceptively edited to try and trigger seizures for some reason. You lot make Scientologists look fucking normal. Jesus Christ, it pisses me off, you know. I feel bad that I like this game because I look across at the other fucking idiots that also like this game. Well, I don't say I like this game, I haven't fucking played it, but I will eventually. But Christ, the inhumanity of doing that, right? There was kind of a warning buried in the end-use EULA, right? They joke themselves about how nobody reads that. So, you know, maybe they could have had like a setting to just skip that bit entirely, because somebody I know also had to look away during that bit of the game, and they have no problems with epilepsy or anything. It's just really uncomfortable on the eyes, you know. And that person did a thing trying to warn people, because we know that people don't read those things. So if you do an article to warn people about that, that could protect people from potential awful things happening, right? And then she gets fucking abuse for it. Christ. There are so many toxic elements in the game industry, and we are not ready for the conversation on how we stop it, or better tools to, you know, punish stuff like this, because they just get away with it, and it just emboldens people, doesn't it? It's just very, very irritating. And it's not even happening to me. God forbid the people on the receiving end of this, how they feel. In a year that's already been very difficult for the vast majority of people, you are just making it that little bit worse for them.
Tem troquinho.
So, the bugs. Where do we start? There are a lot of them. It's not just the bugs though. If it was just the bugs, then it would kind of be a meme-y thing to the same level that Bethesda used to get. I don't think Bethesda will get the same pass for bugs in future. I think they killed that with the release of Fallout 76, but this release has actually been worse, and that's a fact. At least that game somewhat runs on consoles. It was bad, but they've managed to improve that. But the review is so bad by IGN that it really was a talking point. Because IGN are known for giving quite generous reviews, and they gave Cyberpunk 2077 on Xbox One and PS4 a 4 out of 10. So there are fundamental issues with that game, and it's broken. If it gets a review that low, by IGN standards, it's broken. They made it deliberately difficult as well, allow people going in knowing this information. Because if some people knew ahead of launch, they might have been able to cancel their pre-order if they were timely enough, or those who were going to buy it day one but without a pre-order because they like to live dangerously, they may have just gone, I'll wait for the patches by then, or because it's a single player game, I'll wait for the patches or when the game's in its best state and I'll buy it on sale for best value for money. I did that with The Witcher 3. Delicious. Anyway, it's very manipulative, isn't it? They obviously knew they had huge issues. This is why it's been delayed then so often. That's why it went gold. All the promo material was on PC. Now we know why. To show the game in its best light on PCs that nobody can afford. So it's admittedly false advertising, really. You can get the game to look like that, but you have to spend a lot of money. It's a classic trick the game industry do, but the idea that they wouldn't allow people to have console review copies is dodgy as fuck, isn't it? You know, Bethesda did that a few years ago. You know what reputation they have. But the day one patch is always a sign of a rocky launch. It really is. And it didn't fix the issues. It only just made it slightly better. They're already talking about like the releases on next gen consoles or whatever before they'd even sorted out these issues, you know. The thing about PC gaming is it's not all on the same hardware, so it's quite difficult to patch those games, that kind of thing. It's more difficult than a console. Console, everyone has the same specs, and yet it's bad across the board, so this has been a monumental fuck up here. They have continuous frame rate issues and crashes on console. Obviously all the bugs that you would have seen on social media. Bugs would have been fine. If it was buggy, you can patch out the bugs, would have been fine. It's the fact that the game struggles to run. They purposely released this at the end of the console generation because by then you would have learned all the tricks of the trade, how to maximize the graphical output of that console. For example, like Xbox One running at less than 720p at some times, but changes due to dynamic scaling. 10 frames per second during combat, which is unplayable. Combat usually needs like 60 frames a second. Looks clunky otherwise. Characters will look like Metal Gear Solid from the PlayStation 1 while you wait for their faces to show up, apparently. And it's unrecognisable to PC. I reckon my PC, as way under the minimum requirements, could actually properly run it better. Like, the issues I had with Just Cause 3 when my RAM was not strong enough, right, were nowhere near what this game is like on console. My PC isn't that great either. It's just a whole host of problems here. So like, signs have no graphics at all until they load in about 5 seconds later, making it impossible to navigate without the map. Explosions and effects that happen comically late or fail to trigger at all. Enemy AI sometimes break and won't shoot at you. The only good thing they say here is the excellent voice acting is one of the few things that holds up. Even the PS4 Pro and the Xbox One X have problems of their own, but they're still a huge step up from this technical mess. And no offence, I'm not buying a new console just to play this game. It would seem very fiscally irresponsible to do so. But their verdict is, if your only option right now is to play Cyberpunk 2077 on either of the base consoles, I highly suggest you don't play it at all until its many terrible performance issues are fixed. If you've bought it and had an experience similar to what I described, you should absolutely get a refund if possible. The PlayStation 4 and Xbox One versions are simply not in an acceptable state, and it makes me sad to think that so many people are having their first Cyberpunk 2077 experience ruined this way, because when it works, it's a fantastic RPG. Now, on the subject of refunds, they encourage people to get refunds, and presumably didn't consult Sony doing so, so Sony kind of put their foot down and, you know, maintained that they're kind of, you can't download a game on the PlayStation Store and still get a refund, which is so shit, really. It really is. Like, online, whether it's Nintendo or Sony, their refund policies are dreadful. It's a reason why I don't take risks on games there. At least Steam have a relatively decent. You can play it for up to 2 hours. You can't even play it on the PlayStation, even though it says unless it's unplayable or broken, and I would argue this game is in a broken state on the base consoles. But yes, it was such a thing that I'm sure people were getting told that just to wait for the patch a few months later, as if a game that you bought specifically to play over the Christmas break, paid full price for, you'll have to wait, you know, until February when the game's supposedly fixed, if they can fix it that quickly. Just think about the crunch that trying to force people to fix those games over this period now. Think of all the crunch that will be going into that. And it came to a head last night, actually, where the game was removed from the PlayStation Store. That's how bad it has got. Never did Fallout 76 get removed from the store. It's nuts. We will apparently offer refunds now. That's how bad it has gone here. Like, the worst launch of a game I think I've ever seen. One that I've definitely paid close attention to. I don't know, Bethesda must be looking at them going, holy shit, dude. Like, damn. We thought we fucked up. You've just taken the ball and ran with it further. Thanks. We're no longer the biggest laughing stock. What a way to start this new decade. But yeah, I mean, it's genuinely inconceivable. I didn't see any of this coming. Maybe playing on Stadia isn't such a bad idea after all. Because it clearly don't fucking work. Is anyone playing it on the Stadia? It would be rather ironic if that was the only place it was working, on the bloody Stadia. Right, well, that's the video. It just begs the question, doesn't it? Like, do they have enough to fix this game on those consoles? Or will those consoles just have a subpar performance forever, you know? It's an interesting thought. It is an interesting thought. I'm not sure. Normally I would go, yeah, absolutely, but it's just fundamental issues. Really should have got delayed for much longer then. But unfortunately fans about the game acting in such a toxic way put paid to that. But let me know what you've thought of this entire situation and maybe of some of the things. Maybe you've watched this video and learned something that going on that you didn't know about. I certainly did. I didn't know about the fucking jokes that they were making, which were dumb as all hell. Really difficult. This game's been in the media for so much that it's been microanalyzed that it's really difficult to keep up with that. But anyway, most important thing from this video is be careful in the future about pre-ordering games so you don't get burned like this. But in other news, hopefully the video that I'm waiting on my collaborator will be finished soon. This is the last one of 2020, which feels like it's gone very fast but also very slow. But I hope you all have a wonderful Christmas/holidays, and I will see you next year.